Hey everyone, I'm joined by Tom Petersen at nVidia, and we've done a few talks with Tom before. So today I think we're going to talk a bit about RTX and ray tracing in general as a concept. So RTX obviously, I think announced at GDC.
GDC, that's
right. Explored more here at GTC, and let's do kind of the elevator pitch for ray tracing. So the basics. Before that, this video is brought to you by EVGA and the X299 Dark motherboard for the Intel high-end desktop CPUs. The X299 Dark is one of the only motherboards on the market with proper VRM cooling. We've tested this and found significant performance increase over those without active cooling on the VRMs. This board was used in our recent attempt to set a top 10 record in Firestrike, and you can learn more about the X299 Dark at the link in the description below. You were telling me before we went on camera that this has been the holy grail since before you were born.
Absolutely. Well, before even Brian was born.
Right.
And so ray tracing is actually changing from what I'll call like an artistic version of creating images to more of a physics version of creating images. So today with rendering, not many people know, but most of that is kind of like an artist painting a painting. There's lots of heuristics, and you do things like texture colors, and what you're trying to do is find a mathematically simple way to generate an image that's pretty compelling. So you have geometric models, you have shader programs, but all these things have no connection to the real world.
Right.
Ray tracing is completely different. And by the way, that old method of kind of using computer approximations has artifacts. Things like the shadows don't look right or things sparkle. They're getting better, and they've always been good, and they're great for gaming, but they're not real. Ray tracing, in contrast, is trying to do a physical simulation of light. And the way to think about it is, we live in a world where light bounces all over the place, and it hits on an object and bounces around, diffusing, diffracting.
You get subsurface scattering, things like that.
All kinds of stuff, right? But eventually, one ray of light makes it into your eye and hits your retina, and that's what we perceive as vision. So what ray tracing is all about is pretending that you're kind of modeling how a retina works, and you project forward into the scene, trying to figure out what other rays have hit the object that's lighting your eye. So ray tracing is all about the physics of light, and when you do that, you get rid of all this artistic interpretation that happens with traditional rendering techniques. Yeah, so it's very much the way movies do generating CGI, and now what's really different is that we're able to do that in real time using RTX.
Right, yeah, well we've done some ray tracing renders in not real time, right? And to get everyone up to kind of an example for scale, before this video started, we'll have about a 2-second intro animation that rolls. That intro has some ray tracing in it, and it's I think it took us over 2 weeks to render the 2 seconds, right?
Wow.
120 frames.
Wow.
So
is that the logo spinning kind of thing?
That is,
oh,
yeah.
Neato.
Yeah. So obviously that is not great for real time.
No.
Coming down to real time, then, I guess for RTX, do you have any idea how many samples we're taking, or how many rays are being traced?
Yeah, well, it's all different depending on the platform that you're running on. But the key thing to RTX is we have to make some simplifications. With even our next generation hardware, Volta, it's still not enough to simulate every ray. I mean, obviously we live in a continuous world. There's too many rays to simulate, so you have to kind of have a heuristic that simplifies the problem a little bit, and then you need techniques to make that simplified ray tracing experiment look good. So we have filters that are built into our GameWorks that effectively makes simplified ray tracing or sparse ray tracing look really good. And that's the key. As technology gets faster, as our GPUs get faster, we'll be able to do more sophisticated ray tracing with more rays and get more photorealistic over time.
So right now, I think all the demos have been done on Titan V's or Volta anyway. Yeah. Is there a hardware or architectural limitation that prevents it from running on Pascal, or is it just a raw speed thing?
Yeah, it's a speed thing. I mean, there are hardware widgets inside of Volta that accelerate ray tracing. And you can do software backoffs on older generation GPUs, but they're a lot slower. So at the end of the day, real-time ray tracing is going to be reliant upon optimized hardware to accelerate that search of the space.
Was Volta built specifically with this in mind, of accelerating ray tracing, or was that a byproduct?
One of many things that Volta does well.
Right.
So ray tracing for us has always been something that we're super passionate about, super interested in, and it takes many generations, many years, and you know this like from our compute shaders. You got to start somewhere. and we're going to make it better over time. And Volta was the place where it really got its first big investment, and it's going to get, increasingly competent, increasingly better over time across more of our product lines.
When dealing with ray tracing, then, so we've talked about sampling. So how many samples you do, how many rays you trace. There's also denoising, right? Yes. So why do we need denoising?
Again, it's about that sparseness of current hardware capability. So if we could simulate every ray accurately in a game, you wouldn't need any denoising. Right. You would have a completely continuous image generated from ray tracing. But the truth is, today on our hardware, that's too expensive. So what we actually do is generate a sparse image, and that has little pops of simulated pixels adjacent to things that didn't get simulated. So what the denoising does is runs deep learned filters on that to make it look a little bit more natural. And that denoising technology is tightly coupled into, what's your algorithm, what's your technique for picking rays to simulate.
Right. Reflections and refractions were also a big part of some of the demos.
Yeah.
What makes, let's talk kind of a general concept level on a hardware side. Mm-hmm. What makes it difficult for GPUs to deal with reflections, refractions, or we saw the one demo, the Star Wars demo, where you had sort of almost an infinity mirror effect, right? Yes. Guns reflecting off the body, off the gun.
Yep.
So what makes that specifically difficult?
Well, it's really hard to simulate unless you're simulating the light reflections itself. The truth is, on GPUs today with traditional renderers, you're not really simulating reflections. You're generating a texture, and then you're warping the texture all at once, and you're kind of painting it onto a surface so that you can kind of get the impression of a reflection.
Right.
But what's really hard about that is you can only do that kind of with one immediate bounce. If you start thinking about things reflecting on things, then with traditional renderers, you're generating these images, and then you're kind of transforming them onto surfaces, and then retransforming that thing onto the next thing. So it's the order of what is bouncing on what that gets very, very complicated. So that's why it doesn't normally look very good or do very well on traditional renderers. Ray tracing is completely different because it kind of goes backwards from your eye, and it says, what is my eye seeing, and then what are the set of things that hit that eye? So you can actually accurately calculate the order that things are getting lit.
So if we have a scene with the camera, with the player, and we have, let's say, one source of light, like direct source of light, the sun, or something like that, where are we tracing rays from in this scene? Maybe is it coming straight from the light source?
No, the way to think about it is you go from your eye. So you're actually going backwards.
So it's coming out of the camera then?
Yeah, so you say, I don't need to simulate every bit of light in the scene. What I really need to simulate is what light is going to hit my eye. And so you start from there and say, which pieces of geometry are relevant to my current camera position, and let's go figure out the color of those things. And so now you know a collection of points that need to get lit, and you can see what light sources are bouncing into that thing. And it's just this tree that mushrooms out very quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Refractions, is there anything special with refractions versus reflections?
No, it's all just physics, right? It's just model the thing that you're interacting with accurately. So if you have parameters built into your model that affect how light transmission works, it all just works. That's the best thing about ray tracing. You don't have to special case everything. You just sort of build your physical model accurately, and then the visual effect is just a result of calculations.
And I guess for the immediate future, still kind of using traditional techniques, rasterizing in conjunction with ray tracing for purposes of complexity, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all computation, right? So for the short time being, I think you're going to see a lot of hybrids, where maybe global illumination is done with traditional techniques, and then you could do shadows or reflections or other focused effects using ray tracing. And I think you'll see those hybrids for some time before we get to the point where our hardware is more capable, and you'll convert wholesale to a different technique. For current iterations of the RTX stuff, I guess you guys are working with Microsoft for DirectX implementation. I saw was there some Vulkan news as well? We didn't announce anything. Okay. But the way to think about RTX is it's more of the layer that is the NVIDIA layer, exposing our hardware software capabilities up to APIs. So DirectX takes advantage of RTX, and in the future, other OSs or other APIs could do similar stuff.
Right. What's going on the game engine side? When you hand this off to Epic Games, what do they have to do for implementation?
I suspect I'm not really sure exactly what Epic's going to do, but obviously we're working very, very closely for ray tracing with all the game engine guys, and I suspect you'll see adoption over time. And we have GameWorks, which is intended to deliver a complete ray tracing solution to make it easy for integration, both into games and game engines.
Right. Cool. Anything from all the coverage you've seen of RTX, ray tracing in general, any other key points you want to bring out? Anything people have gotten wrong or have overlooked?
No, I think everybody gets it, that it dramatically improves the fidelity of games, and it's new and exciting. It's kind of the holy grail, and to me, it's just a question of how much time is going to happen before we start seeing real games that are taking advantage of it, and we're doing everything we can to accelerate that, obviously.
So the next step, I guess, is getting it off of DGX requirements, basically, right? Not to more consumer hardware.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to see a big adoption of ray tracing technology, we need to get it out into more platforms.
Right, right. So that'll be the future then, maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. A lot of things going on there.
Cool. Well, I guess we might do some additional conversation after this. If you find anything interesting here, check the article link in the description below. I'll do follow-ups on any additional questions people have in the comments section if you have anything major. And thank you, as always, Tom, for joining me.
Great to see you, Stephen.
We'll see you all next time.